Support for this podcast and the following message come from Corient. Corient provides wealth management services centered around you. They focus on exceeding your expectations and simplifying your life. Corient has been helping high achievers just like you enjoy their lives more fully, preserve their wealth, and provide for the people, causes, and communities they care about. As one of the largest integrated fee-only registered investment advisors in the U.S., Corient has deeply experienced teams in 23 strategic locations. Corient has extensive knowledge spanning the full spectrum of planning, investing, lending, and money management disciplines. Leverage Corient's exclusive network of experts to craft custom solutions designed to help you reach your financial goals, no matter how complex they may be. Real wealth requires real solutions. For more information, connect with a wealth advisor today at Corient.com. That's Corient.com. Corient.com. Looks like you need a vacation. Enter the 5-Hour Energy Where Will the Tide Take You sweepstakes. You could win a $10,000 dream beach vacation. Imagine jet setting off to a tropical paradise, having fun in the sun, or diving at a gorgeous reef. It's up to you. No purchase necessary. Go to 5HETide.com for official rules and to enter. That's 5HETide.com. Enter today. Ends June 30th, 2024.
Hi everybody, Jason DeLine here, your regular host on Comedy Album Book Club, and with us today we have Helena Marie.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. And of course we have my producer as always, Matt Ardale. How are you, Matt?
Hey, good, thanks.
Good to see you. So today we're going to talk about comedy holiday specials / movies, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
we've each selected one we want to talk about. So why don't we just do one at a time here? Matt, why don't we start with yours? Yours was the one I was the least familiar with.
Okay.
Maybe you can speak to it a little bit.
Yeah, it's the BBC has this tradition of comedy specials around the holidays, and they vary in quality. You can get like little just one-off, like Mother Brown and her kids, and it's just like another sitcom episode.
Right. Or the Doctor Who
stuff, which is people are throwing a fit this year because it's going to be on New Year's instead of Christmas, and it's like,
wow.
Scandal.
People get angry over the craziest things.
Well, some people consider them some of the best episodes,
they
right? They really kind of go crazy with those episodes.
Yeah, they usually like blow the doors off the budget on those episodes.
And a lot of times they have past doctors show up and things like that.
Yeah,
usually it's the end of the
stuff.
world of a major city, right? Is it New York or is it London? Isn't there normally a city involved, a certain city where it's the obliteration of?
Some of the time, usually it's a lot of the times it's the big culmination of the story that they've been working on for the season.
Oh, really? Okay.
So it's like the Doctor regenerates, or like he meets the Doctor from the first Doctor Who kind of thing, like all that kind of stuff. So they go over the top with that. And, I love, as a Doctor Who fan, I love it. But
over the top is kind of the name of the game with that show.
Exactly. It's Doctor Who is at its best when it's dialed to 11. So,
right. Not taking itself too seriously.
Exactly. But one of the things they do is they do like commission specials. So back in 2004, The Mighty Boosh was really hot at that time, and Richard Ayoade and Matt Berry, who were members of the Boosh. Matt Berry was in the stage show. Richard Ayoade, who's doing the IT crowd at the time.
Matt Berry was on that as well.
Yes. So he was back and forth on between both of those, because he was the head of the park in the first season, and then he sort of dropped off in the second and third season. And Richard Ayoade, who was in the stage show, then came back in the second and third season of The Mighty Boosh as one of the shamans who had a beef with one of the characters in the show.
Did you know that he was also in the American version of the IT?
Yes, and I watched failed. It. It was
Joel McHale.
It was painful. I like Joel McHale. He's for what he does, which is snarky, handsome guy.
Right.
But
Yeah,
you don't get that. I worked in IT for 15 years. I'm about as close to Ray as you get in real life. Like, and I'm Ray. You know?
Well, the original
I'm
guy
angry.
was
I
great.
tell people to turn on and off their computer.
What's the name of the original guy? He's gone on to do other things too. He was in. I think he was in Bridesmaids.
Oh, he's like weirdly enough become a kind of a leading man.
Nice. He's got a good Scottish brogue.
Oh no, Irish as hell.
Irish.
Very
sorry.
Irish.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Do your Irish
He's
impression.
deep Irish. Yeah, I'm not gonna. I'm cool. I can't do accents today. And he was in a great. I don't know if you saw the indie movie Frequently Asked Questions About Time Travel.
No.
You have to see that.
I will.
It is one of my favorite time
I
travel
love it.
movies.
It's Charles.
It's very funny.
Or Chris O'Dowd.
Chris O'Dowd.
Chris
yes,
O'Dowd.
of course. Yeah.
But yeah, and
Very
like
charming.
Yeah, he's great. And
plays the schlub well.
yeah, he plays
he in
an
Brides-
IT guy.
Is he in Bridesmaids too?
He's in Bridesmaids. Yeah, he's the cop. Yeah.
Handsome.
Handsome,
Handsome,
rugged, approachable, kind.
Yeah. Now, so yeah, back in 2004, Boosh was at the height of its game. You had Richard Ayoade doing things like Garth Marenghi's Dark Places. So you had all these sort of like bananas, self-referential parody of British television kind of
Right.
shows.
And very earnest, like really
Oh
not
yeah,
perfect parodies.
it's parody that works so well because it's parodies by people who love the source material. So it's not just like, oh, I'm being ironic and I'm making fun of something I think is stupid.
So this is where I think we might have an argument later. But go ahead, go ahead and tell me more about
Precursor.
ADBC.
So Matt Berry is a musician on his own. Like his music, the music in the musical, he composed all the music. He wrote all the lyrics.
The ADBC musical.
Yeah, and so ADBC is the story of the innkeeper. Who,
So it's like ADBC,
BC,
but in
yeah.
the style of ACDC type of thing.
Yeah, the
Sort
font
of
is kind of AC/DC. It's very, very. It's sort of like a sarcastic love letter to all those super earnest 60s and 70s,
Sure.
like Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, and
Probably
Jesus
earlier
Christ.
than that. Jesus Christ Superstar. For
Superstar,
sure.
yeah.
Godspell.
So
was a
Godspell,
big
it's like
influence.
yeah. And so basically, it's just this. It starts with Tim Wind, who's the played by Matt Berry, who is the artist who produced this off the strand kind of musical back in the 60s, and then
Which
the
you
BBC
said played actually in theaters for a couple of weeks.
Yes. and watching that character, it really feels like the setup for what later became Toast of London. So it's the same kind of vibe of that really pretentious,
Yeah,
self-important actor, musician,
talented in spite of himself kind of thing.
Yeah, and so he sort of frames it by introducing it where we have all of these different characters, and sorry, let me just find here. So there we've got Noel Fielding, Julian Barrett, Rich Fulcher, Matt Berry, Richard Ayoade, and Matt Lucas as God, and Julia Davis playing the innkeeper's wife, and she is actually the wife of Julian Barrett. So they're actually partners in real life, which makes
quite a variety of, especially 2004. Like those are some pretty heavy hitters as far as BBC comedy.
Yeah,
is concerned.
exactly. And the interaction between the hotelier and Ruth, now that they're knowing that they're actually husband and wife or partners in real life, it sort of like adds a sort of different layer to it,
right.
kind of thing. But and it's just everything is like the music is good. It's actually well written of that period music.
It's very accurate. Yeah, you could easily mistake it for something legit.
Yeah. And it's like it's everything is just that little bit off,
Yeah.
which I like. Like all the dialogue is done in ADR. Like nothing is actually recorded. So you see people's lips slightly out of sync. There are times when backs are to the camera for like extended periods, and it's like you don't do that. You don't do a minute and a half of dialogue walking away from the camera.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Matt Berry turns around and starts like freaking out, and then it cuts. It is like, but you don't hear the freak out. It's like, like he's shouting at somebody.
Yeah, it's very bizarrely edited.
Yeah.
It just, all of it reeks of incompetence, intentional incompetence.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah. It's one of those things for me. It's like I'm watching that, and it's like you have to actually be really good to do something that looks that bad without it still being entertaining.
Yeah. No. So I'd like to know now why you chose this. Are you a big fan of this? Do you watch it every year?
We watch it every year. It's close. It's between this and the Colbert Christmas special for similar reasons, because both of them are from people who clearly love what they're making fun of.
Right.
But see the ridiculousness in what they're making fun of. In the case of the Colbert Christmas special, it's the network Christmas, like with Elvis Costello and the goats with horns. They're not reindeer? How can you tell? Like, it's like all of that.
Real throwback to the cheesy 70s variety special type.
Exactly. And in this case, it's like a throwback to the overly earnest, like 60s, 70s Andrew Lloyd Webber
the hippie musical
based
on Jesus,
like the choreography in it is like straight out of Jesus Christ Superstar, like and they have these ridiculous like anachronistic asides, and like there's one moment when Ruth, the innkeeper's wife, the innkeeper is never named, he's always just the innkeeper, she calls Iscariot, who runs the hotel that was trying to buy her husband's inn, and she's doing this song, and then it just cuts to this montage of like really sketchy looking B&Bs around England, and like these like piles of beans and egg and toast and stuff, just like very British breakfasts and stuff, just B&B. It's like just straight through. You think stereotypical B&B. So it's just these like little anachronistic elements that are so over the top, and yet they just remind me so much of those like 70s like hair and all of that stuff.
Godspell, I believe, the guy who played Jesus wore a Superman t-shirt. He had a t-shirt that had a Superman symbol on it. So there's a lot of that anachronistic stuff in that stuff already.
Yeah. So that's where it comes. Like my wife and I both love Matt Berry. We have like I think 6 of his albums, 3 of them autographed. Used to get them from. I don't think he has one this year, but I'd get them for Heather every year.
Did you meet him? Is that how you got him?
No. Just he sells something. He has a micro. Like a micro production company that distributes them and everything. Okay. So I just like order them offline or online, and they'll send them. So here's your autographed one for an extra $20 kind of thing. Right. So I was like, oh, what the hell? I'll get it autographed.
Yeah, it's nice to have.
And it's like it's clear that he loves the material. So it's not like I don't feel it's mean spirited in the way like a parody could be, but it's still fun and uplifting, and it actually does kind of have a nice message, it does sort of feel like, we're be nice, don't be a jerk, the spirit of the season is like loving your neighbors and all that. So it has that core Christmas message without sacrificing it for the joke.
I agree with you to a point, but I think a lot of the underlying story is that they all want to be having sex all the time. Like almost every song involves, and let's just make love. I'm in my room making love, and like that keeps coming out, and that's very like 70s, 60s
like watch that
stuff,
Jesus Christ Superstar with that was staged last summer. Mm-hmm. And that was a pretty horny musical.
It's almost hair.
Yeah. It's like, and like, I don't think of this when I think of Jesus, especially the weird hipster punk leather outfits that everybody's wearing. Yeah. This just doesn't work for me. But hey, whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder where that stuff comes from. Like if if it's part of the community of people who want to tell this story, if they're trying to tell something close to the stuff they believe in, or if they're actually just trying to market to people who aren't part of their religion yet. They're trying to appeal to the hippies maybe through these things.
I mean, I think, in the 60s and 70s when Godspell and Jesus Christ and Joseph all came out, I think it was hippies writing for, they're like saying, hey, we love one another and Jesus is love, man. Groovy. So, we could be into Jesus. So I think that was... Now, when NBC is doing a weird leather punk version, I think that's an exercise in marketing towards the Glee kids. So the kids who got into musicals through Glee, who are now 20-something and and horny. So I think that's it. And with this, I felt like that sex. There was a sort of a sexiness, especially when Judas Iscariot is going on and on, the champagne, do the bubbles make you randy? And it's just in that super, super short tunic with his leg up and all sweaty and gross. And it's it's clear that they know this is sexy in as much as it's about sex. It's not sexy in any way that's appealing sexually.
No, it's not erotic
kind of gross. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's erotic in the same kind of way a guy on the street would say, "Hey, that's erotic." In that is in no way erotic.
So you're a big fan of this.
Yes.
So I watched it for the first time yesterday, and I found it hard to get through. I mean, part of it's the production quality. It looks like it's meant to have been look like it was shot on old videotape stock. Yeah. But parody is a tricky thing. I'm a big fan of Airplane and the first Naked Gun movie, stuff like that. But that's I don't really know how to.
Those are more like general parodies,
it's a parody of genre. It's similar,
but it's more broad, right? Whereas this is very specific.
And it's more joke filled. Yeah. This feels like and Christopher Guest almost came into this category too with A Mighty Wind, but he remembers to write a bunch of jokes in it too. And this, to me, I didn't find enjoyable. I wouldn't watch it again because it's too good at being what it's parodying. Yeah. And I'm not a huge fan of Godspell and Jesus Christ Superstar. I mean, I appreciated it a while ago for what it was. When I was in high school, we went to see a reproduction of Godspell. And of course, there's that revered production of Godspell where it brought together Martin Short, Andrea Martin, Catherine O'Hara.
All the SCTV folks.
So many of those great people met because of that. It's like this legendary thing here in Toronto. But it's so close to the real thing. To me, it looks like I'm watching a third-rate version of those things that I'm not a huge fan of anyway. Yeah. And it's just it feels so legitimate that it's hard for me to enjoy. There are a couple of jokes in it that I find really funny. Like they're walking away and he says something like, let me know if you need anything. Like fresh water or towels. Yeah. And he's like, oh yeah, and you're an innkeeper. That must be tough. In this market. Or something like that, like just singing.
Like Richard Ayoade's character, he
plays Joseph.
He plays Joseph, where he has really graphic voice, and then he sings, and it's like a normal singing voice, but then he just switches back to those ridiculous. So yeah, I can definitely understand it, but I mean, it's very much in the mode of all of the stuff that those guys were doing, because you also have, you had. I'm trying to remember Dean Lerner. So, Man to Man with Dean Lerner, which is one of Richard Ayoade's other shows, which is very much of the same ilk. So it is difficult without the right context. I could see it being inaccessible. I will admit that it's very much like unless you're in on the joke already. Mm-hmm. This is probably going to be kind of boring.
Well, and I think I am. I think I was, but it's just I think it's just not for me, that type of Toast of London as well. I mean, I gave up on that after about 5 episodes because it has a few great what I think are Matt Berry-esque moments where he's very funny and kind of a blowhard, but a lot of the storylines are so surreal and strange, and it just doesn't appeal to me. It's a different kind of comedy, and I really credit BBC for trying different types of things, because with The Office, I think it was wonderful how it was a short run and they were just like, this is it, we have our story set, we're done. Here in North America, they quadrupled the length of the thing, probably more than that. It turned into a hit series, and then it ran out of gas and wasn't as good at the end as it was in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, like the British one, you have 2 12-episode series and a Christmas special, and then the Netflix movie.
Which wasn't great.
Yeah.
But with BBC, I think they do some amazing things like that. They'll even do something very short and succinct and just the story they want to tell. But then they also do things like, to me, this ADBC should have been a sketch as part of a larger thing, but they turn it into a 30-minute special. This, to me, one short premise that I don't think deserves more than 10 minutes. But that's kind of gutsy of them too.
Yeah, it's a risk. It's definitely a risk.
Attention span.
And I mean, I think it probably flies better in England, where a lot at that moment, because you had all of those people doing all sort of similar types of comedy in that moment, because the Boosh is kind of like that too. I mean, this is a very Booshy musical,
I suppose. But Boosh is, most of their stuff is shorter form. Like, they're a sketch show, really.
Yeah.
There's a few of their things are longer form, but mainly it's fairly.
Oh yeah, I mean, they were a sketch troupe that they transformed it into them, running a zoo, and then them. I don't know what they did when they lived. There was one second season they lived above the shop, and then the third season they ran the shop.
Right.
There's like in Camden. I don't know.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's sort of, they have little premises that sort of like float in and out.
Yeah.
And then they just have the thread. And yeah, I can definitely see where your perspective is coming from.
I also think it feels like it's a little too late. Like, if they'd done it in the early 80s, I think there would have been a bigger audience for it. But I'm not sure if the people who watched Godspell and Jesus Christ Superstar in the 70s and have it as a good frame of reference are watching something like this now, a Matt Berry special. I don't know. I feel like there's a very niche audience that appreciates this kind of thing, because you have to be probably young and hip, I guess, enough to appreciate the comedy of these people involved, but also have a level of reference where you know what they're parodying, which could have been 20 years before you were born,
Yeah, I mean,
it's a risky thing.
I was probably 2 when, like, Jesus Christ Superstar came out,
so
kind of
most
thing.
people, our age, don't have it as a level of reference, really.
But I think, and you citing Toast, I think it's similar to that. It's in a way which is also similar to Oh Hello, in that it's very niche, and it's not really geared towards a broad audience, which is fine.
Sure.
I mean, I wouldn't expect everybody to like this. I wouldn't recommend it to every person that I know. Like, I wouldn't like sit down with my mom and watch this, because like
it is not accessible to everybody.
But my uncle, who was really into musicals and was an Anglican minister, I'd sit down and watch this with him because he's really into music. He's really into those musicals from that era, and this was kind of this shtick, the entire God thing.
I'm very curious how he would critique this. Your mother as well. Like, if they would see the comedy in it, if the comedy is accessible enough, or if they would just say, that's an okay musical, or it's a terrible musical.
Yeah. I don't think it is particularly accessible.
No,
I will admit to that. Like, off the top, it's not necessarily something that just anybody can sit down and watch. But if you're into that particular, again, it's sort of multiple, like the horrible edits, especially when Matt Berry would turn up as God and just giving the thumbs up, and then just like the weird wipe where he like sort of shoots off the screen and stuff. The poor video edit. It's like the poor quality. Like, it looks like a degraded VHS tape.
It reminds me of, you ever seen any of those thumb parodies?
No.
There's one called Bat Thumb.
Oh,
and
with
then,
like the talking thumbs.
yeah, like they superimpose I think an upside down mouth on thumbs and put googly eyes on them.
Oh, jeez.
And they're probably like 20 to 30 minutes. And there was one that was a parody of the original Star Wars trilogy, and one that was Batman, and they're
Isn't
ridiculous.
that for kids? Like, isn't that like? Is that
No.
really marketed for adults to watch a talking thumb? Like, really?
It is. It's an absurdist type of parody, and it has its jokes in it that are funny, but it is ridiculous. There's some pretty good jokes. There's a part in the Star Wars one where there's this thing that's sort of supposed to be Yoda. It looks like Yoda, but all it talks about is that what it is. Like, it shows up and they go, "Oh, we have to talk to you. You're the master." And he goes, "I am a puppet." And like, "Uh-huh. So how can you help us?" He goes, "Hand goes up me and manipulates mouth." Yes. And it's just completely self-aware that it's a puppet. It's kind of ridiculous, but it kind of reminds me of that type of thing. Like, it very lovingly reproduces what it's trying to do, and it has like the bad star wipes and some bad spaceships hanging from fishing line and things like that, which is part of the charm, but ultimately unnecessary.
Yeah. Well, for me, it is a holiday tradition.
Yeah, sure. How long have you been watching it? When did you first watch it?
About 5 years ago now, 6 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we'll watch it
Wow.
every year, and Heather finds it funny. I find it funny, and I completely understand why other people do not find it.
Yeah,
Well, hey, as long as you find it funny.
I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I have a
You're
feeling.
not supposed to say that.
I have a feeling you wouldn't like it.
If it's something that's a comedy that you don't like, I definitely wouldn't like it.
I don't know about that, because there's a lot of stuff I like that you don't.
Yeah, but there's never something that I like that you don't that's comedy.
Is that right?
Pretty
Is
sure.
that a pretty broad taste?
Oh yeah,
But
you
you
have a much
love
greater
musicals.
appreciation.
You do love musicals.
I do. Yes, that's true.
So you might find something in there that you enjoy. It may not be funny, but it's like, oh, that's a
Right.
good song, like that.
Right.
There's the song, Ruth's solo song, I love, and the
She's great.
They're all really good singers. Like, Richard Iowade, not as great, but
It's played for laughs a bit too.
like
Lots
there's
of falsetto.
yeah.
This was
Sounds like the kind of thing like my mom would like.
She might find it funny too. I'd be curious to see her take on it.
If it's done by the BBC, she'd like it. There we go.
Well, it's on YouTube.
Your mom likes the BBC.
All right,
like this.
so we're switching gears a little bit here. Helena and I didn't pick specials. We chose movies that have various comedians in them. So Helena, why don't you talk about the film that you chose?
Okay, well, it's a very well-known film, I would imagine, and if you don't know it, kick yourself. It's called Home Alone. And I think that, I don't even know when the first time is that I would have seen it, but it came out in 1990. Yeah, so I was 7. There, now everyone knows how old I am. And I probably would have seen it right around the time that it came out.
In the theater, possibly?
I don't think so.
You might have been a little young.
No, yeah, I probably would have waited till it was out on VHS. But it's always been a part of my life, and I think probably sometime in my teenage years I lost contact with it. But when I was a young adult, it was a go-to movie around the holidays that was easy to put on whether you were in a room full of kids or a room full of adults, because I think the comedy appeals to both children and adults alike. And I think that's what's so great about it still today, is that it can kind of, there's a relatability aspect to it when you're following Macaulay Culkin's character. The whole idea of the family, wishing your family wasn't around anymore. We can all remember being kids and be like, I hate my parents, or,
You need a little space, and you don't get it at that age.
Even though we've grown out of that now, we can still relate to it, I think. I know I can still remember being that bratty little kid who's upset over something that you shouldn't be upset about, but you still are upset about it. And then it's kind of like it's this feel-good family movie, but that has all these spooky and creepy and scary aspects to it, with the robbers and everything. And I love the idea of a child being able to plan how to, get these guys to go away. My favorite scene is that first scene when they come back to the house, and it's the rocking around the Christmas tree playing, and he's got all those
strings,
all the strings,
Michael Jordan cut out.
Yeah,
Going by on a train.
Exactly. It's just fun. And of course you have the SCTV peeps in
Catherine
there.
O'Hara, John Candy. Yeah.
And that just adds a whole other layer to it.
Absolutely.
Like their interaction between the two of them is just, it feels so genuine
warm.
and sweet. There's nothing, no ulterior motive. He's just like, it's the holidays, we got hosed out of a flight, we'll give you a lift where it's on the
Who
way.
doesn't trust John Candy?
Yeah. And a truck full of polka performance.
Man, it's so great.
Catherine's her I mean, I don't think I could praise her enough, but her facial expressions when she's at the airport and John Candy is just starting to talk to her about you poke, and her like this look on her face, like you feel the tension inside of her. She has something she has to do. She has to get back to her son, and yet she's a nice person, and this guy is standing in front of her saying nonsense that she is not following and has no idea how it relates to her at all.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, is there... it's just the way
She does a lot with what she's
God.
given as far as script, and she brings so much warmth. Like she brings the worry of the mother, but it's not one note. She's also strict at times. She sends Kevin up to the attic, which feels a little bit harsh, but at the same time you're still on her side. Like,
but she's still
on her side.
Yeah, she's still like, okay, we'll find somewhere else for the kid who wets the bed to sleep. It's not mean. She's strict but loving.
But and also a fully realized person. Like it could have been easily just a one note where you're just at 10 going, my kid, I gotta get home to my kid. But it's a very nuanced performance. She's exhausted, she's worried, but she also has that terrific sense of humor. Like I think she deserves a lot of credit as an actress, not just as a comedian, for her depth of emotion. She's incredible.
I mean, I'm gonna say it, and some people might argue this with me, but I honestly think it's the best John Hughes film. Like out of all of his films, I saw a lot of them in the theater. I saw, and this is the most balanced one. All of them
it's
have
most accessible from a wide range.
Yeah, and I mean, like you look at like 16 Candles. There's and like especially if you read Molly Ringwald's like essay about filming, or not 16 Breakfast Club,
right?
But 16 Candles has a lot of problematic elements. And then so Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Uncle Buck. Sort of this phase, like she's having a baby. This is when he sort of realizes, I don't need to be so National Lampoony in all of my stuff. I don't need to throw, half naked women into every movie kind of thing, and then it's like this is like there's literally something that everybody can enjoy in this movie. It doesn't come across as preachy. It doesn't come across like Home Alone 2, also John Hughes. Was a horrible money grab. It was just like, this is so wrong. Right. No, I do not want to see... Even then, I was like, Donald Trump's in it. I'm not going to watch it.
I've actually never seen that.
I think you nailed it on the head when you said it's balanced. We were watching it the other day, and I noticed how it's not one note like a lot of kids' Christmas movies are. Yeah. Or even comedies are. You get a lot of movies that are just gross out, goofy rated R stuff from beginning to end, or you get the very saccharine sweet where the stakes are fairly low through the whole thing, like, oh no, what are we gonna do, we lost our Christmas presents, oh there they are, it's just not high stakes. But this has a lot of they really give you the idea of this family cares about each other. There's a lot of heart, but they're frustrated with him, with Kevin. But then there's also the fear of the furnace in the basement, which I think a lot of kids can relate to. It's like a scary, dark,
terrified
musty,
of my basement.
Oh, yeah.
That's a very common thing. It's usually not well lit. There are a lot of dark corners and things. But then there's also the robbers are actually pretty scary. They're willing to invade the home even though they know he's there. Yeah. What does that mean? But they also make it fairly cartoony in the way he deals with them. Yeah. Like he's not shooting them with bullets or cutting them with knives or stuff. They sustain some pretty serious injuries.
Probably killed them. That iron to the face.
But there is that nice, like you said, balance between there's fear, there's mystery, there's comedy, there's physical action, and something for everyone. Like you believe it.
What I really love too is that when we're introduced to like Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern, it's not like we're only presented with them as the robbers, as like these entities that are coming in. We get to know their characters as well.
Well, Pesci's introduced as a cop.
Yeah.
That's a bait and switch that we don't know for a while,
That's
which
awesome.
is great.
But then we see them, robbing the other house, and we see their interactions together. We get to know them as well, and we're obviously not on their side, but we're not left with the feeling of like we hate them or we're scared of them. Really, they're harmless.
Like when they almost hit Kevin. When they're pulling out of his neighbor's yard, they're like, "Hey, kid, watch out!" It's not get out of here, kid. They actually genuinely seemed to care that this kid not get hurt.
Yeah.
For motivation beyond, then we'll have a dead kid if we hit a kid, and we have to explain why we're like, wow, stop.
They're very Keystone Cops type of bad guys.
Yeah.
Sort of harmless, but they're as foils basically.
Yeah. And even Kevin's character, like watching it again last night. Like this is there's actual growth there with a kid in a kid's movie.
Yes,
it's so easy to they're just so sweet. But Kevin is like, I was kind of a jerk to my family. I should have known better. But they were also treating me like garbage, which isn't cool. And then the end and how he helps the old man next door.
Yeah, it's quite beautiful. His
like
talk with him in the church is very grown up and mature.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get a chance to even be seen that way in his family. He's the youngest, right? And they don't think he's capable. And that's what's nice too. When they come home, they say, "Oh, we don't have any milk," and he says, "Oh, I went shopping. I got everything." And they're like, "Really?" And so now they have a new appreciation for him. He's grown up a notch during the course of the movie, and that's nice to see. And I really like watching him sort of living vicariously through him. It's cool to see him do two things. A, grow up by, I love when he talks to himself in the mirror about how I've used this kind of shampoo and this body wash and I've shaved every part of my body. And but then he also regresses and does things he'd never be allowed to do, which is an inspiration for me, stuff I would do.
Still today,
he has the bowl of like an entire liter of ice cream with chocolate sauce all over, and he's watching movies and ordering pizza, and I'm like, yeah, man, like that's what you would do, like if you could do anything you wanted.
No parents around, no responsibilities. Yeah,
it's cool. So I really love that balance of I can do whatever I want. I'm going to go to the extremes, but at the same time, I have to step up so I can take care of myself. And in the meantime, he learns how to be kind to other people and take care of them. And there's a lot of really sweet pieces of storytelling happening.
Really sweet, and he does grow up a lot in the movie, and yet thankfully he still remains such a child.
And he's 8.
Yeah.
And Macaulay Culkin does an incredible job.
He does.
Yeah.
He really does.
As a child actor, it was just really amazing.
And it's interesting, like when he, towards the end of the movie, when he goes and talks to the other Santa Claus who is supposed to relay the message to the real Santa Claus about him wanting his family back. That's his Christmas wish. He's still a kid at the end of the movie because he wakes up Christmas morning expecting his family to be there because he asked Santa for his family back.
That's a heartbreaking moment.
It is. And I just think it's so sweet. And it's a real tearjerker. I mean, for me, I'm a big sap for these kinds of things, and especially when it's a movie that's so nostalgic because I have been watching it for almost my entire life.
Yeah, I mean, like we were like you were 7 at the time. You were Kevin's age.
Yeah.
Almost when that was going on.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
we're a few years older, but not that much older. You know.
Yeah, now it's neat to see it through the eyes of someone who would be the age of a parent.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can understand. You can now relate a little bit more to the family, to Catherine O'Hara and John Hurd and what they're going through.
Yeah, the only character I didn't like the uncle is a jerk.
Oh, yeah,
I think we all have those jerk uncles. But the one that I didn't felt real to me was the older brother.
Buzz?
He was Buzz. He's basically Chet from Weird Science, just a younger version of Chet.
A little Biff.
Biff.
A little
That's
Biff.
weird.
Yeah, that same kind of 80s, like, this is 1990, but it's coming out of that bully archetype of just such a blowhard with the buzz cut and like high and tight buzz cut and, a gun on the wall. It's just... It didn't seem to fit with the rest of the family. Like, as a character, it's like, he didn't feel like
he would be their son kind of thing.
Well, jerk kids have jerk parents, though. And, if you're an older child or a middle child, there are ways you rebel that aren't like everybody else, And he looked like the oldest of, I don't know, 4 or 5
kids.
He's probably not getting the attention and love that he used to get. And I don't know. I bought it. And I especially like that they humanized him a little bit when he came home. He said, it's pretty cool that you didn't burn the house down.
Yeah.
Like, there's still a little bit of affection for his brother.
Yeah. He wasn't all bad. And that's it. And Macaulay Culkin, I can't remember which one of the Culkin brothers it was, but the one who played his cousin. Fuller. Yeah.
I think it was Kieran.
Is it Kieran? He was like... couldn't have been more than 5.
Oh no, just a little kid.
And he was actually really good.
Yeah. So cute.
With those just little expressions and stuff. I'm like, I don't know if that was in directing or just something natural to the Culkin family.
I love it when he's drinking all that milk and he puts it down and just looks at him and smiles.
He lifts his eyebrows.
It's like, are you planning to win the bet? Like,
you have an agenda.
Yeah. I'm really leaning into this thing, everybody. And I love that his name is actually Fuller. Full
and there
bladder.
were some really neat touches too. We were talking about how like when Macaulay Culkin wakes up and he realizes his family's gone and he's remembering what everybody's been saying, all the nasty things that everyone's been saying to him. Right. They took different cuts of it, different takes, right?
They're all close up, looking right down the camera.
It's interesting because it's kind of like it's his perspective, and they were all worse.
Yeah,
I mean,
harsher.
they might have said the same kind of words.
Yeah, it's read worse. And it's his perception of what they said.
Yeah, and I think that's really just a neat little touch.
I love stuff like that. It drives me nuts in movies when people have a flashback and it's exactly the way we watched it.
Right.
And that never rings true to me because they wouldn't have this perspective of an edited bird's eye view. They wouldn't see themselves. And I always think flashbacks, and maybe it's too extreme to want this, but I always think flashbacks should be the POV of the character. This should be first person view. But I understand why it's not. But yeah, I really like that they took the time to, they had, the 6 or 7 different actors and had them all do their different lines just for him, looking right down the camera as if they were looking at him. I thought that was really neat. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love that movie so much.
It's a good movie.
Yeah, it's great.
It has every emotion you can think of, you experience in that movie. And I feel the one thing I feel like was a little weird was that the old man next door who there's this legend about that he killed people and stuff, and he turns out to be a sweet man. He takes a long time before he ever says anything to Kevin. Like, he's just happy to sort of loom over him, looking terrified. Maybe we could infer that that's also Kevin's perspective. But, like, once in a while, maybe he would just be like, hey, how are you? I'm not a scary man.
I'm Mr. Smith, who lives next door.
Well,
and it was weird, too. Like, later on, when all the things were happening with the robbers, the old man's like, okay, let's get you back home. Alone. Like, why at that point?
The cops already know that, like, people tried to break into this house. This kid's home alone.
Yeah.
Why would child protective? Child protective services weren't called because it's a sweet family movie.
Sure. But I think the old man probably should have taken
let him
well,
home.
Yeah.
Actually, what I like about the relationship that he has with this old man is that the old man doesn't treat him like a child.
No, they're peers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're equals. Absolutely.
Which is like, I know when my grandparents, like my granddad, would like treat me like an adult, that really endeared him to me. Like it wasn't like, oh, you little kid. It's like, oh, you want to sit and talk about stuff? Sure.
It's a special relationship between kids and the elderly. I think the elderly sort of get a new perspective. They're not in the middle of the hustle and bustle of having to raise a kid, and they understand the innocence of it. And yeah, it is nice. I've got memories like that too, where my parents were my parents for certain periods of my life, but my grandfather was a peer, and I think they portrayed that nicely in this movie. I really like that church scene where they're giving each other advice and new perspectives.
And I mean, he, his like, I'm afraid to call my son. That's just such a touching, realistic. It's not like they just got in a fight, it got out of control, and then both of them were too proud or too afraid to resolve it. But if it just took Kevin saying, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Well, also, I think part of it is that the man felt comfortable being vulnerable because he's talking to an 8-year-old. I mean, there's no consequence. There's not going to be judgment. You know. Yeah. It was really, really beautiful relationship.
Yeah, it's a really great ensemble piece. I think there's so many different elements that make this movie work, and the directing, everything with the actors are really what hold this piece together for me. I think it would be a totally different movie if Catherine wasn't in it.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you just can't.
Well,
even though she's not in it for a lot,
she's a glue that holds it together.
Oh yeah.
And so much of the comedy
so funny.
comes from what feel like real moments, real family moments. It's not just jokes written that are sort of outside it, where everybody's a hilarious comedian and has all these great little sarcastic asides. It's in the moment family type things in their situation. John Hurt is very funny as well as the father.
And even when they're in Paris and the uncle starts going around with the shrimp tray.
That's for later. Oh.
And he just ignores it and just keeps going. Like, we have that person in our family who would just do that.
And then John Hurt on The Family trying to call, and he's talking to the French police. Do you speak English? No. Est-ce que parler anglais est là? He's showing so much, and it's clearly just grade 9 French that he's got. And he's great at that frustration, but still the warm father.
Well, it's interesting because actually, if there's one thing that I've always found lacking in this movie, was to me it never felt like he was concerned enough.
Yeah, like when Heather and I were watching last night, she's like, "Why isn't he going home?"
Yeah, and I mean, I guess he's staying with the rest of the kids.
His family is there.
I always felt he was being the rock for everybody else.
Yeah,
maybe, but I think for me, I would have liked to at least have a moment where that is being described, because if not, it just leads so much into this stereotype that we are so much trying to get away from, is that the mother cares, and it's the mother who's worried, and it just, even when the rest of the family comes home, like it's good the dad comes in and he hugs Kevin and says, "Oh, good, you're okay," but like, he's more interested about the tooth that he finds on the ground, and I get it, because from a storytelling point of view, if you have both parents freaking out, it's too much noise. But just something a little bit more to just feel like the father cares. That's the only thing.
To me, he was also the guy who freaked out the least when there was the mess in the kitchen. Like, he just seemed to me like a calm dude. Like if this happened and I was in France and if I had a kid and left it, I would like to think that I would hold it together and say, okay, we need a plan. We'll get back tomorrow. There's nothing we can do. I'm going to call the police, do whatever we can. But
he is calling the police.
And someone has to take care of the other 4 kids.
I do see that he does seem a little bit less realized compared to the other performances.
Like, it's more about Catherine than him, for sure.
Yeah, like if you look at, say, Uncle Buck, which also John Hughes, many of the same performers. Yeah. You have John Candy as the emotional male component, and he carries that film. He emotes so much more. Right. So there you see, I think
he has an arc too. It's more about him.
Yeah.
Than
So he's and the same with Plane, Trains, and Automobiles. And I think it's like John Hughes can do emotionally realized male characters. I just think it's like this is just a case where it just got lost in the shuffle because
Yeah.
You give everybody in a movie like this an arc. It's just
No,
it's
for
too
sure.
much work.
For sure.
And I don't know why. Well, I was gonna say I don't know why they had to cast so many kids because that confuses things. But that's the only way they could justify it for anyone.
yeah, the cousin miscounting some kid across
I
across
love
the
that
way.
kid
Yeah.
coming over and being nosy about it.
So
That was
is
really
this
funny
standard
too.
or automatic? You know, what's the mileage on this thing?
Jeez, kid, I don't know. Scram, get out of here.
Yeah, they kept kicking him out and he'd go away, and then he'd just be popping up in the next scene. It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yes, you like you said, some great comedy heavy hitters. Like I think some of my favorite scenes are with Catherine O'Hara and John Candy, like talking in the airport where he just out of kindness says, "I'll help you out," and then the ridiculousness of them all sitting in the back of a U-Haul playing polka, and then all the polka songs and albums he lists, and she's just like, "No,
Or him trying to get her to play the clarinet. And she's
Yeah.
like, "No, I do
Yeah.
not play the
yeah.
clarinet."
Finally,
and she's
no.
really nice at first, and then has to be like, I don't want to. I remember he used to do a Polish character and did polka stuff.
Oh yeah, the Schmangy brothers.
Spangy Brothers, cabbage rolls and coffee. Good. Yeah. Hilarious. So it was fun to see him kind of lean into that role. I remember he was considered for Rick Moranis' role in Ghostbusters as Louis Tully, but he wanted to play him as a crazy, like a German guy who had like these two giant Dobermans, and so he'd be using this like over the top German accent, which I'm sure would have been fun, but kind of would have been out of place.
It'd been
in that
it'd
movie.
taken too much
Even Rick
attention.
Moranis is a pretty heightened version of a real person in that movie, but you still buy it.
100%.
But John Candy as a German, I think would be it'd make that movie too silly.
Yeah, it'd be too much.
But I would have been okay with him being a Polish
Schmangy
Walter
brother,
Austin,
yeah.
Schmangy brother
Yeah.
in Home Alone. But yeah, real heart there. Anything involving Candy.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Okay, well, the third movie, another John Hughes movie, and I kept my mouth shut before, but I think this is John Hughes' best movie. And I think this is one of the best Christmas movies. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the movie with the T-shirt that you're wearing right now?
I'm wearing a t-shirt with
The tree on
it.
it.
Says Griswold Family Christmas, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. It's got the tree on the station wagon with the roots and all. And I also think this is Chevy Chase's best performance.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Outside of Saturday Night Live, I think it is the best thing he's ever done. And I mean, this movie never fails to make me laugh. I watch it almost every year, and I never get tired of it. I've got parts of it memorized, but there are parts of it that always surprises me. It is just joke filled. It is just filled with funny moments and great characters. Like, sort of the opposite to Home Alone, where we've got sort of a family that is sort of one unit. The people in this family are all so different from each other, and they're all so funny.
And like every cast member is solid in this too.
Yeah.
Like Johnny Galecki as
very funny and so
I think this was
dry.
the second or third incarnation of that son.
So it was Anthony Michael Hall in Vacation, then
Yeah.
in European Vacation, I can't remember
Some
guy's
other
name.
blonde skinny guy.
And then Galecki in this one, and then in Vegas it was Ethan Embry. And then, of course, they did it with new people when they had Ed Helms as the grown-up.
Well, it's like the grown-up version of that. Yeah,
That's kind of a fun movie too. But yeah, I think Galecki is amazing. He does great work in this movie as a very dry, rusty, and very aware of how incompetent his father is. And there's a lot of great just deadpan reactions and eye rolls, and that's so fun. Juliette Lewis is also great as the sister, who's sort of a same kind of same feel. It always seems like this movie, more than the other Vacation movies, I think the family unit aside from Clark are all much more capable than he is.
Like if Home Alone, I feel if Home Alone is John Hughes' best non-Lampoon movie, I'd say this is his best Lampoon movie, because this is where, again, he's found that perfect balance. Like, Clark is just enough of a self-absorbed dick that he you can see him pulling these boneheaded moves like at the lingerie counter, but he still loves his family so much that he freaks out when things go wrong, not because of embarrassment, but because he's not giving them the Christmas that he feels they deserve.
It's great that there are so many goals within that narrative about how it's going to be the best Christmas. He's always wanted to have a big old-fashioned family Christmas and have his parents over, Ellen's parents over. He wants the biggest, greatest Christmas tree. He wants all the best lights, a fabulous turkey dinner, and just he has all these ideas of what that is. And part of that has been ingrained in me as too. I mean, I've spent pretty well every Christmas with my family, and I love that. I love that idea. I'm not a religious person, but I love the idea of this time of year we all get together with friends and family, and it's a nice sort of heartwarming time of year, and. We tried to do something a couple of years ago. We were living in a condo in Montreal, and I said, this year we're going to have the Christmas vacation Christmas. We're going to have people from both sides of the family. It's going to be fantastic. And it was just a disaster. It was just too many personalities, too many people under one roof, too much food to worry about.
Well, too much pressure on us because we had this expectation of it being so amazing that the second anything wasn't exactly what we expected.
And part of that, I think, either it came from me watching the movie, or the movie really represents everybody's real fears. I wanted the best tree, I wanted great food, I wanted amazing decorations, I wanted everybody to show up on time, I wanted to sing Christmas carols, the whole thing, and it never goes according to plan. And
we even did seat assignment for the dining room table. There were only 9 of us.
All right, anyway. What I think this movie does really well is everything does fall apart in very relatable ways, albeit extreme, a little bit over the top, but that's what makes it funny. But then they realize the true meaning of Christmas, just have everybody together. And they pull off both sides of that coin so well, because like Home Alone, we have fantastic actors who are great at the comedy. That's a given, but then they just deliver even more with the hope and the warmth and the kindness, and that just brings it all home and makes it worth watching.
The one thing that in retrospect feels uncomfortable for me, not in a bad way. I still love this movie, and it's also on our regular every year rotation. Right. Is the yuppie hating though? Like they hate those neighbors in a way that I'm like, that's not normal. To be fair, at least my dad was kind of a yuppie. Right. And my mom, she didn't have time to be a yuppie. She was a nurse, but
it's beyond. I think it was beyond just yuppies. It was a certain. It was like color of yuppie. It was
it was not like all yuppie, but it's like that.
Self-absorbed.
Like he needs 3 stereos. Like he's like, what happened to the stereo? I'm like, well, you got 2 more right next to it, so I don't think it really matters that like a piece of ice flew through the window.
I love the mystery of what happened to that stereo. Like the idea of a spear of ice breaking a window and breaking an electronic and then melting. So you have this destroyed thing, something obviously hit it, and then a pool of water, and your window's broken. Like, how would you ever figure out what happened? I love how perplexed they are. But they just know, even though they don't figure it out, they just both turn slowly towards Clark's house. They know he had something to do with it. Yeah. And then she goes over, and the dog attacks her. And then she comes home and punches him out. Yeah, that's Julia Louis-Dreyfus, too, who is great in that role. So fantastic. I love
they play horrible people very, very well, the two of them. But they're just horrible in a mundane way. They're not evil.
Right.
No. They're just obnoxious in a way that like that stands as these could be real people that you live next to who jog and then sneer down their nose because you have like the wood panel station wagon and all that.
The antithesis of not just what the Griswolds are, but what Clark wants them to be.
Yeah.
He wants the homey, folksy, lovey-dovey, cheesy, cliche Christmas. Yeah. And these people want anything but that.
Yeah. Right. Like what sets the two apart most interestingly to me is set design. You look at the Griswold house, and I relate to that house because that's kind of like the house I grew up in. But then you look at the neighbor house, it's like all neon, and it's like that
cold and modern.
Yeah, it's like Miami Vice aesthetic of those Najal paintings of like just stark, harsh lines.
Miami modern. style.
Yeah, and it's like
Monochromatic.
it's those little touches that just like elevate the material that much more.
Even
Because then you have like this something set in the back of your head, setting the joke tone.
Right.
So it makes it that much easier to
These
land
people
the beat.
are not like us.
Yeah.
Right.
Even their jogging suits were like, they look like that rescue blanket material, like
Yes.
all modern foil, like futuristic.
However, it's
spaceman
interesting
stuff.
you say they're not like us. Like, I feel like the true spirit of Christmas then is lost then if you're not truly
Well,
accepting
maybe
and
not
loving.
like us
of-
isn't the right thing to say, but like they seem like they don't care about the spirit of Christmas, so that's why they kind of become an easy foil. They're the Grinch in this story,
Right.
you know. I mean, you could argue, I guess, that Ellen's father is like that too. He sort of poo-poos everything Clark does. Finally gets the lights to work. The little lights aren't twinkling. I know, Arden. Thanks for noticing. He's just trying to bite his tongue and just grin through everything. And then beyond all that, then we get that wild card Cousin Eddie show up.
Yeah.
And that is also one of Randy Quaid's best roles, I would say.
I definitely would.
I
Yeah.
mean, you could argue The Last Detail he was good in, but I mean that was really Jack Nicholson's show. But yeah, I would say this is he's one of the funniest parts of it too.
Well, just his delivery, like the plastic, like, they had to take that metal plate out and put the plastic plate in, and it's like if something happens, then my hair will just not be right.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a second. I think there's other things that you've got to worry about, but then your hair not parting right.
The metal one, he said every time his wife turned the microwave on, he pissed himself and forgot who he was for a half hour. So, he delivers those lines, so just throws them away. Like, you just believe him 100% that he is this guy. And one of my favorite things too is when they've got one of those German candles where it makes the propeller on the top spin around.
Yes.
And Eddie just goes and just touches it, and it just falls apart. And he just looks at it like, well, that's a piece of crap. But like he broke it. But just the look on his face, he's just such an uncaring like jerk. And we met those people, and I've been that sometimes. Like, oh, look at this, and like I break something by accident. I'm like, oh well, oops. Like, just a bull in a china shop type of thing.
But again, with his character, like like Clark, he's sort of like the talk to Clark's tick. Like, ultimately, he does also want that family Christmas. He does want to do right by his family.
Yeah.
It's just he's so grossly incompetent. He thinks kidnapping a person and bringing them tied up in his easily identifiable vehicle to the family is the way to go about
and that brings us to our fourth Saturday Night Live alumni. We had Chevy Chase, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Randy Quaid, and Brian Doyle Murray plays Clark's boss. So another comedic force, and he's great as well.
Yeah.
And he does a very nice 180 from the hard ass boss. What did he call him? Greaseball. Like,
He did a different name every time. And I
love
that's
the
got to be
idea
like improv.
that he literally thinks his last name might be Greaseball. He's not trying to insult him. He's like, yeah, whatever you say, Greaseball. Like that stuff like that makes me laugh so hard.
Yeah.
Even the movie Son-in-Law, which is a really stupid Pauly Shore movie. His character name in that is Crawl, and the father keeps getting it wrong. The father to not Gina Gershon. Who's that actor? Carla Gugino actually plays the love interest, and that's one of her early things. And the father he wants to get his attention. He goes, crap. And that kills me too. Like, he literally thought in that moment that his name might be crap. He's not insulting him. He thinks that those kind of jokes, they get me every time.
Yeah.
Just that misunderstanding is so
But
funny.
and as soon as he like sees the consequence, he's like, "Oh, crap! Like I was wrong."
Yeah,
And
it feels a
I
little
can't
tacked
believe-
on.
yeah.
A little convenient, but it is nice.
But then when his wife shows up and she's like, "Oh,
right,
you
cut
idiot!"
the bonuses. And when you see the people that matter get hurt, that's when you know. Yeah. And what was it, Jeff? Oh man, and Chevy Chase does some great emotional work in this movie. When he's reading the thing, and he expects it to be the check. He says, "I'm putting it in a swimming pool. I already put a deposit down." And Ellen's like, and if there's enough left over, I'll fly you all down and dedicate it. And then he goes, and Ellen says, "It's bigger than you expected. It's it's a Jelly of the Month club. and then Randy Quaid, well, that's a gift that keeps on giving the whole year through. Like, he's just totally clueless about what's going on.
Yeah.
And then I think that's when Clark does his second of two great rants in the movie. There's great stuff. I mean, you really feel his frustration. And there's a lot of fun set pieces too, with the squirrel and the tree. The cutting down of the tree itself. It starts off on the way to the tree, that great highway
that crazy like under the truck.
Oh man, I love
yeah.
that stunt where he just goes to pass the guy and goes underneath that tractor trailer.
Do not try that at home.
No. And one of the things too, though, like that makes this movie so great is like the little everything is set up by a simple mistake, generally by Clark or one of the family, but like the Christmas tree, he gets in there and he left the saw at home, and it's like we've all been there, and it's like and he's too proud to go back and get a tree from the lot.
And they never show how they get it out, but I love that panning of the car and the tree goes by and you just see the roots, and it's like a 6-foot radius of just dirt. It's so great. And then they get it in and he unleashes it. A lot of sap in here. Looks great, little full, a lot of sap. Like, that line kills me every time. And then he goes to bed and he's talking to Ellen about the plans, and he's turning the pages of the magazine, and his thumb sticks to every page with sap. Just so subtle. They're still talking and ripping pages out, and then he says, "Finally, okay, good night." He turns off the light, and the lamp comes back with his head. He kisses her, and his hair is stuck, and then that's just the end of the scene. And it's fantastic to me. The best part of that scene is the lamp is stuck. And that much sap is ridiculous.
And even with all that sort of like over the top, sort of slapsticky kind of humor, it still has the grounded, like when the family lock him in the attic. And he's like wearing all that old clothes and finds the old movie. Like, even finds the old gift that he forgot to give in a prior year.
If you watch that scene without crying, I mean, you deserve a reward. I love those old home movies where he's watching his uncle and stuff, and then they show up later in the movie. Like I said, I think Chevy Chase deserves a lot of credit for staying so grounded. Like, he's known as such a slapstick pratfall guy, but he stays so grounded in all these ridiculous moments. He's so dry, but also has the heart and the smile, and that's why I love this movie. I mean, there's tons to laugh at, but it's never bitter. It's not an ironic kind of comedy,
and it's dialed down from the earlier Lampoon stuff too. It's like this is a Christmas movie.
Offensive.
Yeah, we have our sexy swimming pool scene, but never goes to, like, if that was the first Lampoon or the second Lampoon.
Oh, she'd have been completely naked.
It knows, like, okay, we gotta dial it back a bit, because we want that would just be wrong to have that in this movie.
And that's actually a fun callback to the woman he was trying to flirt with at the counter. And there's some awful jokes in that I still laugh at, though, where he's saying his wife is dead, and then obviously she doesn't wear underwear, so what are you doing? He's saying he was buying lingerie for his wife, God rest her soul. Oh, she's not dead. She's history, and obviously doesn't wear underwear. So, what he's saying really makes any sense. He's just so flustered.
I wonder how much of it is improv and how much of it is direct on script.
I wonder too.
Yeah, I could see him doing sort of that on the fly.
Right.
Yeah, it feels so natural.
Yeah.
And then his son shows up and just shuts it down.
Yeah. And it's like, again, like the two kids, like, they're just so good too. Like, I've been that rusty. I've made that face. Like, when he's freaking out and he's like, okay, I'm done. Like to Clark. And it's just like...
I love that the kids aren't, like, overly smarmy and sarcastic, like in a lot of stuff, but they're also not too saccharine. They're just in that middle. They're almost the adults of the movie. They're just dry and sort of tired.
And if Clark was my dad, I'd be tired too.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, he just has boundless energy and incompetence, and those two things mixed together are kind of adorable. But you can understand how living with it is just exhausting, and you really have to love someone to stay living with. Like, God bless Ellen, like what she puts up with in her marriage. She deserves a reward of some kind too. And I like that she resorts to smoking once in a while, and then her mother says, "Are you smoking?" No. And
Yeah.
They all deal with their struggles in the movie, and but they love each other, and that I think that's what I like about it. Is it's a movie with heart. There's a lot of It's a Wonderful Life type sentiment in it, but also just so many relatable laughs, so many moments we've all been in, and they just take it that one step forward that you need in a movie to make it funny, and it all works. It all hangs together so well. So yeah. That's why that's my favorite Christmas comedy thing, holiday comedy thing. So
Great.
Thanks, guys. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
sharing your stories with us. For you listening, please let us know what your favorite comedy special or movie is from the holiday. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit in January. Maybe we'll do a little special thing where we talk about what other people were talking about. And then it'll be full steam ahead, and we'll be talking about more comedy albums. So thanks for joining us. Have a great holiday and a great new year. And thanks for listening to Comedy Album Book Club.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from Corient. Corient provides wealth management services centered around you. They focus on exceeding your expectations and simplifying your life. Corient has been helping high achievers just like you enjoy their lives more fully, preserve their wealth, and provide for the people, causes, and communities they care about. As one of the largest integrated fee-only registered investment advisors in the U.S., Corient has deeply experienced teams in 23 strategic locations. Corient has extensive knowledge spanning the full spectrum of planning, investing, lending, and money management disciplines. Leverage Corient's exclusive network of experts to craft custom solutions designed to help you reach your financial goals, no matter how complex they may be. Real wealth requires real solutions. For more information, connect with a wealth advisor today at Corient.com. That's Corient.com. Corient.com. Swimsuit? Check. Sunscreen? Check. Phone charger? Check. Don't forget to pack the 5-Hour Energy. It fits great in a pocket or carry-on, and the alert feeling will help you arrive ready for anything. Now get 20% off when you use code 5HETRAVEL at 5hourenergy.com. Expires April 30th. One-time use only. Not valid with other discounts. Remember, visit 5hourenergy.com and use code 5HETRAVEL to save 20%.